Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's meeting of the Development. And for those of you who are not aware, agenda item number 1 is the evacuation procedure. We're not anticipating any fire alarms this evening, but if you hear the alarm, it's like a real event. If you do hear it, please leave the building by the nearest safest exit, which is likely to be that door, or if not, the civic suite entrance that you enter the building by. Please go to assembly point G on the car park, which is just outside those windows, and stay there until tonight's officer says it is safe to do otherwise. And as you're aware, we have a register of people who are here, which we'll need to give to the fire brigade, so they will be looking for you, and so it's important that we will give them the opportunity to find you. Agenda item number 2 are apologies for absence or members away on official business. We have apologies from Councillor Dervix, and making a surprise, rare appearance is Councillor Phillips. So welcome, Councillor Phillips. And we have apologies from Councillor Ridley, and again making another unusual appearance is Councillor Media. So Councillor Media and Councillor Phillips, welcome both to the board. Members, are you all happy that we note those apologies?
Very grateful.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is disclosure of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest. Does anybody have anything you wish to? Thank you. Members, I have one item to bring to your attention. There are 2 issues on the agenda tonight which I wish to propose a recommendation on, which is contrary to which is in the programme. Given that, I will vacate the chair for those 2 items of business, and the deputy chairman will take over. Please be unkind.
We were last
Agenda item number 4 is the minutes of the meeting of the board held on the 4th of August, which were circulated in the agenda. Are you all happy that I signed them as a true and accurate vote? Thank you very much. Agenda application is next. So the first application to view is Abbey Green Court, Grandon Road, Polslow. Mr. Brown, anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add to the report, Mr. Chairman. Only a larger version of the plan that you have in front of you, showing the 4 or 5 trees there at Abbey Court. Abbey Green, I beg your pardon.
Thank you. Don't know, I saw first. So ladies first, Councillor Wapples, and then Councillor Beth.
Thank you. I'd just like to say I'm in support of this application. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you. I support it too, Chair, but just clarify. There's a sentence that says, importantly, the local authority cannot refuse consent, nor can consent be granted subject to conditions. Yet further down under item 0.7, we're recommending the approval with a list of conditions. So I just wonder why that is. Is it because the council owns the land, or?
No, Mr. Chairman, the notes there are informatives rather than conditions. Apologise for that.
Councillor Morrison.
I was going to propose the recommendation, Chair.
Second. Thank you. Are there any alternatives? You must now see those in favour of consent. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. The next one is application number 300. Sorry, application number 361 for 46 Church Hill. Mr. Brown, anything?
Similarly, again, Mr. Chairman, I did the slides there, a larger version of what you have. The same comments, Councillor James, both line reflects the stuff.
Councillor Hayfield.
With the recommendation, should second.
Thank you. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Application number 357 for 36 Church Hill. Mr. Brown, anything to add?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chairman. It's the fell tree rather than to do works to the tree, but a replacement is being proposed.
With the recommendation, should second.
All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. We now move to application 261 for Meadowview Farm, Kinborsey Lane. This is one of the 2 I mentioned earlier on, members, so I will hand over to Councillor Watson.
Not chair for you really.
I'll be on the meetings, then it can't chair from where I'm.
Yeah, chair from wherever you like.
Thank you. This is application, sorry,
Sorry, temporary chair. I was just going to say, is it a peculiar or non-peculiar reason that you have stepped down for this issue? Just for our interest.
it-
Thank you.
It's simply, I don't think it's good form for the chairman to be proposing things against the recommendation. So if ever I want to
It's fine.
stick
I
my
just
oar in,
wanted-
I just want to make the point I'm doing it as a member of the board, not
That's
as
fine.
chairman.
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is application 0161, Meadowview Farm, Kinwalsley Lane, Mr. Brown.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. All I'm going to do is show you the plans which have been replicated. Meadowview is there. You can see the existing buildings on the site and obviously the location of the building marked there with the red arrow. And then the actual elevation of the log cabin, as you can see there. I'll go back, I'll leave the location plan on the screen. This was deferred at the last meeting for two reasons. And these explanations are now given to you, and clarifications are given from an officer point of view in the report. We've looked fully at the Forlongley neighbourhood plan, the relevant policies which are outlined there in section 2. And then the fallback positions, which was the subject of the debates last time by the board, Mr. Chairman. And I've outlined there in 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs what those fallback positions are. The physical fallback of the actual construction of buildings. And there's also the actual residential fallback, which is outlined in 3.4. As this becomes no surprise to you, Mr. Chairman, as a result of that additional work, the recommendation remains the same.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Are there any sort of questions? We should be on it first. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, I think you're all aware of the background of this application. In fact, it's been before us a number of times before. And I think at some point we had a site visit in this area to look at a similar application. So I'm presuming that most of us at least are familiar with it. And, you know, I'm sure you won't be surprised that I've read all the reports in detail, both as chairman and as the local member. And I've had a number of my constituents talking to me about their concerns about this application. And I have to say that their concerns chime with mine. I don't think that, I mean, having been through the report, I'm not sure I agree with it. In fact, I don't agree with it. But mainly, there's a lot of buildings. And a lot of these buildings have been on site for some time. So some were granted consent by a deemed nature because they've been there for a while. This one, 2 meetings ago, I think we had an application for permanent consent, and now we've got an application for a 5-year temporary consent. I have given significant consideration in my own mind as to whether to test whether this would become reasonable or not over time to go for a temporary consent. But my understanding is there is no such thing really as a temporary consent. There's a permanent consent for a time limited period. And if I, you know, in 2, 3, 4, whatever it is years' time, wanted to disagree with renewal of the temporary, well, that you have to argue against the decision we're making tonight, because you end up giving permanent consent and saying, why is it different? So my reason, you know, formally as to why I think we should refuse consent is that the site is in the Greenbelt, and it's considered that the development is inappropriate development as it is a disproportionate addition to the buildings already on site, and thus the spatial and visual element of the Greenbelt will not be preserved. The openness will not be preserved because of the accumulation of existing building at this location. It's not considered that there are any circumstances put forward by the applicant to overcome the harm. Proposal is therefore contrary to policy LP3 of the adopted North Warwickshire Local Plan 2021 as supplemented by the NPPF, and also the Philogny neighbourhood plan, both the one that's adopted and the emerging plan. I think this goes down fundamentally to me to Greenbelt and to the quality of design. So personally, I think this is worthy of refusal, and I propose refusal on the reasons I've just given.
Thank you, councillor Simpson. Do we have any other comments or anyone else? Zabel.
Grateful to councillor Simpson for articulating planning terms what I felt, given that I know the area, know the site, so I will second the proposal.
Okay, thank you, councillor Waffles.
Would it be appropriate for us to just add, Mr. Brown, if you wouldn't mind just explaining if there was any of the issues regarding the greenbelt, greybelt issues that have recently been brought to our attention. As councillor Simpson mentioned, the greenbelt, and obviously we've recently been told that that isn't as straightforward as we used to be. Is there any new addition to that? Thank you.
No, Mr. Chairman, twice now I've recommended for approval, so that's not an issue. The only advice I would give to the board, given what Councillor Simpson has moved, is that the board should really consider the necessity for conditions prior to refusal. That's the normal practice, and if you consider conditions are acceptable that would mitigate the concerns raised by Councillor Simpson, then that's the approach you should take, rather than the refusal. But if you don't think conditions are appropriate or don't meet the tests as set out in the relevant planning guidance, then you can refuse.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Are there any other comments or any other proposals? Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the guidance Mr. Brown's given is absolutely right. For me, it's a fairly binary choice between consent and not consent. I think if we were to add conditions, we'd be trying to condition what is there and what the applicant has asked us to do. So I'm not sure that in a practical sense that would get me further along from where we are. So I'm genuinely aware that we should be considering conditions. I did think about that, and I didn't come up with anything which I thought would help. Perfectly happy to think about if anybody has any conditions that you think we could look at.
Thank you, councillor Simpson. So I have a proposal for refusal, which is seconded. Do I have any other recommendations? Okay, that in mind then, it's a straightforward vote, I guess. So can I see all those in favour of the proposal for refusal? Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. That looks like it's carried. Again, I will. The next one's also, I will stay in the chair for the next one, which is application 054 Cliff Meadows, Tamworth Road, Cliff, Kingsbury. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to
Sorry,
quick,
I should have forewarned you, Chairman. There is a speaker on this application.
Okay.
Up on it, Bruce. I think it's going input.
Okay. But thank you. If you want to be moved down to the speaker chair, and then we'll come back to you once Mr. Brown has presented.
right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of slides which replicate again, as I said, the plans that you have in front of you. Site there edged in red, and the top plan there is the consent, which is granted appeal, and the bottom slide there is the current proposal, which is the additional caravans, as you can see located there. This matter was deferred at the last meeting, as you can see from the report, in order to seek legal advice on the matter of whether there was evidence to show a demonstrable unmet need, the type of development proposed as outlined there in paragraph 1.1. That advice has been received, and should members wish to take any advice on that, legal advice on that advice, if I put it that way, then they should be directed to the head of legal services on Mr. Councillor Simpson's right-hand side. Obviously, we can deal with planning issues that are involved in that advice. But that advice is quite clear, as you can see, under paragraph 2.3, the advice concludes the council does have a demonstrable need for gypsy sites. And then other matters were considered in that advice relating to the definition of pitch, gypsy pitch. And as you can see here, and as in fact claimed by the applicant, this is not an additional pitch. It's 2 extra fans for the family, extended family, to live on the single pitch. There already is, this is a variation of the application, so therefore the other conditions attached to the appeal decision apply. And as you can see, para 2.8 is a personal condition relating this to this family, and not one which is generally available to any gypsy and traveller family, Mr. Chairman. So the recommendation remains as it was before, that planning permission be granted.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Bruce, welcome. I will ask my colleague to give me the information on public speaking.
Good afternoon, good evening, sorry. You've got 3 minutes to speak. I'll remind you, you've got 1 minute, 2 minute mark. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Thank you. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of this modest and necessary variation to an existing gypsy and traveller site to allow 2 additional caravans. This proposal does not seek to expand the site, but its lawful boundaries, nor does it introduce new occupancy. It simply enables 2 adults, already named and approved in the original appeal decision, to live with greater independence and dignity on the land they lawfully occupy. Let me be clear, this remains a single pitch occupied by the same family as previously approved. The only change is a practical one, allowing 2 adults who are currently living together to have their own space while remaining on the same site. This is not an expansion, it is accommodation. The planning inspector in the original appeal gave significant weight to the acute shortage of gypsy and traveller sites in North Warwickshire. The inspector stated unequivocally, there is no supply at all of deliverable sites to address any current need, yet let alone a 5 years worth of supply. That statement remains true today. There has been no meaningful change in supply. It does not have a 1 year supply. In fact, it has no supply at all. This is a significant policy failure in the 1 year since the appeal decision. There has been no attempt to meet the unmet need. The inspector also concluded that this site is a sustainable location. Nothing has changed since then. All conditions from the original decision have been met in full. The site is being occupied lawfully. All pre-commencement conditions have been discharged. There are 2 children also living on the site. While they may one day need their own space, this application is not about them. It is about the current adults we hope that by the time that those children reach adulthood, North Warwickshire will have a gypsy and traveller accommodation to supply them with pitches in the future. That is for
1 minute and still.
Thank you. That's the council's role, to get sites allocated for gypsies and travellers, and thereby the children which are currently on the site, hopefully, by the time they grow up in 8 years' time, North Warwickshire will be able to provide for them. This variation is not speculative, is not opportunistic, it's a practical, humane and policy supported response to a well documented and ongoing shortfall in provision. It respects the inspector's findings, adheres to planning law and supports individuals who are simply seeking to live independently, lawfully and with dignity. I respectfully urge the committee to approve this variation and uphold the principles of fairness, sustainability and lawful planning.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Councillor Ben first, then Councillor Simpson.
Thank you. You did say that all the conditions have been met on the site. One of the conditions was that it should be family members, and yet it's been proven very recently that one of the people living on the site is not a family member.
Okay, could you provide evidence of why you believe that?
Because one person that's been in custody at the moment is not a family member, comes from that site.
That person's not on the site now.
He was on the site.
Who is that?
He was on the site. He's currently been arrested.
Who? I don't know who that
Exactly.
that is.
No.
So In a normal household, you would be allowed a friend to come and stay at a night. This is the same as any kind of gypsy and traveller community. You're allowed to have friends come and stay for a night. There was a small touring caravan on the site, which was John Junior's touring caravan, and it says clearly in the appeal decision that a static caravan and a touring caravan are allowed on the site. So I also don't know what the relevance is to who this other person is and whether they're in custody or not. It's not a material consideration to this, and I'd ask you why you think it is a material
Absolutely
consideration.
not a consideration when it was one of the conditions that it's only family members living on the site. So you cannot just dismiss it and say it's not there.
How long was this person on the site? Who was this person? And has it been reported to planning enforcement? And are they taking the necessary steps to serve a breach of condition notice against the appeal decision? Those are the correct steps which would have to be taken for it. They are not material to this application.
Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chair. In your comments, you were pains to tell us that this was not an application for an additional site, merely a variation of this condition of this previous application. You then went on to tell us about the failings that you perceive in our existing policy for generating additional sites. Given that this is not an application for an additional site, what is the relevance?
So they are two adults. And if there were other available sites within the county, so if North Warwickshire had allocated sufficient gypsy and traveller sites, then the two adults would potentially move off of the site and move to there. That is material consideration. That is a very special circumstance as to why these two adults can't go anywhere else. They have to be on this site, and in order to live independently, that's the only route that they have whilst living their culturally way of life, nomadic way of life.
Another question for my Chair.
Yeah.
Was the planning inspector aware of these two adult children at the
Yes.
time he granted the consent?
Yes, so the inspector named all adults. So it named John Junior, Roseanne and Teresa, all as adults, and granted it for their resident dependents. That's what was granted at the time. The inspector simply was looking at what was before himself at the time, and at that point, they would have been slightly younger, we're now a year on, and they want to live independently. And that's why the two caravans are applied for.
So the inspector was aware of these additional people, family members, at the time he granted the consent, and yet he specifically referred to a number of caravans on the site and all of the individual circumstances of those inhabitants. Don't you think that it would have been normal for the inspector to have referenced that if he did not feel that, or rather if he felt that he should be giving consent for a larger number of caravans, particularly as he specifically referenced in his report the two previous applications which had been declined by this authority and declined on appeal?
So the previous schemes were also for one single pitch, but on a different part of the site, had materially different aspects to it. There was no bunding, no landscaping. It was for one pitch front left, one pitch front right, and a third appeal for 8 pitches was in between that. This approved one pitch there were no caravans on the site at the time of the appeal, not one. It was simply just for one caravan and one touring caravan for this family. This family now just want to live their lives happily on this site, and quite frankly, you know, kids want to move out, they want a place of their own, and they are now adults, and I think we probably deserve it, but North Warwickshire don't give them the you know, the ability to move out whilst sticking to their nomadic way of life.
So you told us earlier on that all of the conditions have been adhered to.
All the pre-commencement conditions have been discharged.
So that's
yes.
not what you said. You said all conditions have been adhered to. Are you changing that now?
No, and if any conditions haven't been adhered to, then a breach of condition notice will
How
be.
many caravans are on site at the moment?
There are currently three static caravans and one touring caravan. And the application before yourself is to regularise that situation.
Are you
So-
aware of conditions? Well,
The one which I'm seeking to vary.
yes.
Yes,
You told
I'm
us
seeking
all
to
the
vary.
conditions have been adhered to. I'm trying to see if you know what condition 12 says.
So the very point of this application is to vary that condition. So won't-
I'm absolutely aware of what the condition is and what the application is for. The point is, you told us in your own words less than 10 minutes ago that all conditions had been met. Is that true or not?
I think you're being very.
No, I'm asking you a
Rude.
question. Would you like to answer my question or not?
I think what you're asking is not relevant at all, because we're seeking to vary that condition. It's the whole point of the application, and quite frankly, I think you're just trying to make me look like I don't know what I'm talking about.
I'm not
But-
trying to do anything other than get you to
It's
answer
fine.
my question.
Quite obvious that we're seeking to vary it to have 4 caravans, 1 touring caravan, 3 static caravans, and therefore, of course, whether that condition or not has been adhered to is irrelevant, because that's the whole point of this application. And if this application should succeed, then it is lawful. If it doesn't succeed, then we will take it to appeal and we'll go for costs this time. That's how it will go. And I went to the appeal last time. It got overturned. So last time it was recommended for approval, got overturned here in front of many of you. And we took it to appeal and the inspector allowed that appeal. We did not go for costs. We did not feel it was necessary. But this time, I do feel like it is unreasonable to overturn this decision.
So which decision are we overturning?
This recommendation.
I'm grateful for the speaker's clarification of his imprecise testimony.
Okay,
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions for the speaker? Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I don't want to be pedantic here, and we've obviously got to make a decision. You've mentioned a number of times the nomadic way of life. Can you explain to us how the application here actually fulfills a nomadic way of life? Because I can't see it personally.
Okay. So that's their cultural way of life. They are gypsies and travellers. That is their family, and they travel for work. Hence the touring caravan. So John and John Jr. will go out and they will find work by travelling. That's groundworks mostly, and that's the way they do it. They live in caravans because they are averse to brick and mortar, and that is the cultural way of life, and that's how it's described by the planning practice guidance, and they fully conform to that. It was tested at appeal the inspector said clearly that they do comply, and therefore they are considered under the Gypsy and Trafford policy. They are not considered under any different policy. If that clarifies it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions for the speaker? No, just check behind. I can't see it. Okay then, thank you, Bruce. We will move to the debate. Any comments on the debate? Councillor Bell.
Mr Brown, can I ask a question on this? I was led to believe that there have been at least one, if not two letters from the community with concern about antisocial behaviour emanating from this site. Is that correct?
Members should be aware that the representations received on the application are in section 8 of the previous report, Appendix A, and that refers to a number of matters, including antisocial behaviour, and that is being particularly focused on in later consultation responses, representations that we've received. It is already in the report.
We haven't seen the letters.
The matter is, I'll take legal advice on this, Mr. Chairman, if I can, because as has been said in this chamber, there are proceedings taking place. Therefore, must be careful with what I say on that. You need to take legal advice on that matter.
At the moment, we can't comment as there's ongoing police investigations and court proceedings going on. All we're aware is there was an ASB incident a week or so ago, and it is going through the courts.
Maybe I might come back to him. So I understand that, and I'm being careful about what I say. But there are two things. There are incidents that may or may not be prosecuted, and there's the fear of incidents, which is also a material consideration in planning. People who are afraid, and if those letters are talking about people being nervous in the community, we're entitled to see them, and we haven't seen them. Is that correct?
It is, yes.
So we haven't seen them.
Thank you. Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Chair. I certainly support the comments which have been made by Councillor Bell. Question I was going to ask, as I was looking at Appendix A and seeing from the parish council and from 18 others objections, and I was going to ask if there's any further letters of objection. But the one thing, like Councillor Bell, I too am concerned is normally, if there are other letters afterwards, they are normally presented for us to have a look through and time to read through. But I'm again looking at legal advice there. Why did we not have the opportunity to have a look at these letters beforehand? Thank you.
Do I want to come back on that?
Apologies, it's my first day back off leave, so I am unsure as why you haven't seen those letters.
Mr. Brown, any comment on that?
They have been received, Mr. Chairman, and they do refer to matters which were already reported to you under as members have said, under section 8. They were not reported because of the personal circumstances related to in those letters, which is as the head of legal services has said, we shouldn't be really commenting on until court proceedings are completed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Waffles.
Thank you. So for me, I feel like I need a bit more clarity now that a few things have been raised. So for me, the confusion with the gentleman's comments about whether or not they have adhered to what is already there, not what they're asking for, I think is very relevant, because if they're not already adhering to what is there, then surely that means it's being breached. Am I getting that right, or correct? So it isn't being adhered to, surely, if it's not currently.
Went in.
So I feel then that we need some more clarity on that, because if it's not being breached, then surely we do need to think about what we're going to do from a department. As the gentleman suggested, we should be potentially taking action on that. Yeah, I don't know, that was the suggestion. I think actually it brings it into relevance. I do also agree that we are not providing other sites, which is a thing to consider. As councillor Bell also brought up, if we've got incidents where there's potentially other people living there, then again, that's another breach. So for me, I'm confused on what is actually the truth in this application and whether we actually have all the information today, including the letters now, that we can actually make a decision today. So that's my thoughts.
Valid. I mean, just.
In terms of the letters, I've not had sight of them. However, I am aware of what's happening in the background, due to the nature of the investigation and the court proceedings. We're unable to comment on any letters or representations made.
Mind if I go back? Yeah, I totally appreciate that. I mean, in circumstances like this, maybe perhaps a confidential section for us councillors, because we're here making a decision on information that may be relevant to this application. I just feel like we've got half a story, nobody's fault, you know, if people haven't been here or whatever, but I just feel that things have been brought up tonight. And I feel that I can't make a decision as a councillor because I don't feel we've got all the information there. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
If I could just comment with regard, and correct me if I think what Councillor Simpson was talking about around condition 12 was that on the appeal, condition 12 said one caravan. There are obviously 3 caravans there. So I stated all conditions have been met. It's not strictly true because actually condition 12 has been breached. Now, of course, condition 12 what they're looking to challenge in its application. So that's what it is.
Sorry, but surely you changed that after the permission's granted and not beforehand? That's what I'm trying to get my head around.
Right.
This is a retrospective planning application, Councillor Waffles. Therefore, at the present time, that condition is not complied with. Clearly, it's retrospective. And as the speaker was saying, it is the decision of this board as to whether that now becomes law, that condition is now changed or not. The fact that it's not being complied with is not a reason for refusal. You have an application in front of you which you will determine, and that will determine then whether that condition is varied or not. But this application has been said several times is retrospective, and therefore, as this happens with retrospective applications for similar conditions, apply to members of the settled community as well as to travellers. It's quite a common occurrence, as members around this table will know. So therefore, whilst there was compliance with that condition, there is no longer compliance with that condition, but this application has been submitted to verify that matter, and put it right one way or the other. If I can just come back on the matter about breach of occupancy, we are aware of that particular alleged breach, but as the speaker has said, we need evidence to show that in fact that person was not a friend or a visitor, and again how long that occupancy was on site. Was it just a matter of days, or was it a question of months? And was that person on the site fully every single day, 24/7? So we need that evidence to show there's been a breach, and that's quite a high level of evidence to achieve in order to be successful in a breach. If we're going for formal action on a breach of conditions notice, it's just be aware there's a matter of caution there, as to we should not just jump into the situation to say yes, we need to take action because it's been reported that there's been a stranger, if I can put it that way, on the site. You need the evidence to show that there's a clear breach by fact and by degree. The head of legal services may wish to advise you on that as well, Mr. Chairman.
Anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Thanks, Bell.
Can I just say that what Mr. Brown's just said, which I'm sure is accurate, demonstrates that a condition that it should be family members only is almost impossible to enforce. He's just demonstrated that by saying how difficult it is to say whether or not another person on the site is actually occupying it, or whether they're just passing through. So actually, as I say, the condition that says it must be family members means nothing.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Do I have any more? Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chair. To an extent, it was me that started this conversation. What I was trying to get to, I absolutely appreciate this is a retrospective application. What I thought I'd heard from the speaker was that the applicant was compliant with the conditions. And it's, I think, fairly clear by the fact that this is a retrospective application, that is not the case. They may have been in the past, but the condition says there shall be no more than one pitch on the site and no more than 2 caravans as defined by the Caravan Sites and Control of Development Act 1990 as amended by the Caravan Sites Act 1968 as amended, shall be stationed at any one time, and only one caravan shall be a static caravan. It's a relatively simple point that I was trying to make, that the conditions are not currently being complied with. But I accept quite clearly it's a retrospective application, and therefore the applicant is trying to regularise that condition by the submission of this application. That really is part of my concern with the recommendation, Mr. Chairman. My understanding of planning is that the NPPF and our local plan set specific conditions on the way we determine applications. The planning inspector actually delves a little deeper into issues and makes it clearer what the specific conditions are for any site. He considers the application in great detail and sets, if you like, revised planning for that individual site in the light of all of the circumstances. I think the inspector was aware of all of the circumstances when he determined the application and went to pains to say in the decision that this was a single site with a prescribed number of caravans in full cognizance of the people who would be living on that site. Previous inspectors had said no to earlier applications, or I accept on a different location within the site, a different landscape treatment, but specifically for other larger numbers of caravans. So I think we have clear guidance from previous inspectors, as well as the last one, as to what he felt was reasonable. What the application is now trying to do is change the last decision. And I'm perfectly happy that that's entirely normal. It's perfectly reasonable for people to ask for consent for something different. We see that all the time. The board then makes a decision on it. It's unusual when we're having the conversation, the applicant's agent to say, if you don't do what I'd like you to do, I'll appeal and I'm going to apply for costs. We don't normally hear that. We normally hear people giving us the reasons why, as opposed to the reasons why coupled with a threat. If you don't do what I want, I'll appeal for costs. My issue is simply that I think the inspector made a clear decision in cognizance of the relevant occupation of this site, and he decided on the conditions that were attached, which are quite clear. I take a different view of the balance that our officers have recommended in their report, and I would like to propose that consent is refused for the following reasons. Site is in the greenbelt and it's been considered that the development is inappropriate development as it is a disproportionate addition to the buildings already on site, and thus the spatial and visual element of the greenbelt will not be preserved. The additional 2 mobile homes, caravans, would not preserve the openness of the greenbelt because of the spatial and visual impact on the open setting. This level of harm is considered to be significant, which is not outweighed by any individual circumstances put forward by the applicant that overcome this level of harm, because the lawful use of the site is limited to 2 caravans. The proposal is thus contrary to policy LP3 of the adopted North Warwickshire Local Plan 2021 as supplemented by the NPPF. The LPA is satisfied that there is a fear and threat of antisocial behaviour which have been linked to this site, which we talk about. This is considered to carry significant weight, such that this is contrary to LP 29(17) of the adopted NWLP 2021 as supplemented by the NPPF at paragraph 96. Quite simply, I think we have a clear policy as laid down by the inspector on this site. I'm not trying to change that. I'm saying, in my view, the balance is that we should decline this quite reasonable request for additional accommodation. And frankly, if the inspector feels otherwise, as he's done in the past, then I will clearly accept that. But my view of the planning balance is that we should refuse the application.
Okay, thank you, councillor Simpson. Councillor James.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Without wishing to repeat any of that, I fully agree with what Councillor Simpson has just said, and I'm happy to second his proposal. I'll just say that last month we deferred the decision partly because we wanted to get some legal opinion. That legal opinion sort of referred to in the report now. I think it would have been useful if we'd had a view that as an appendix so we could see what was actually said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other?
Thanks. I wasn't on the board when the previous appeal was heard and the previous decision. I just wanted to clarify something. I think Councillor Simpson and somebody else referred to the fact that the inspector had looked at all of the circumstances and decided that just one pitch with one caravan and one tourist should be allocated. Presumably you mean rather than looking forward to the fact that the children might want to move out and have more caravans. So can I just clarify, is that what you mean? And if that is what you mean, can I have clarification on whether it would be normal for the inspector to make that consideration? Or does the inspector think about what might be needed in 2 years' time, 3 years' time? Or does the inspector just look at the request or the application at the time?
Is that directed at Councillor Simpson or me?
Well, really clarifying, is that what you meant? I.e. the inspector didn't consider that extra caravans would be needed? And if that is what you meant,
Okay.
is that usual?
Chairman, I'll give my answer, but then it might be helpful for Mr. Brown and Sophia to say if it's correct or different. So look, I think it would be unusual for the inspector to make a decision other than the application in front of him. So normally he would only look at the application in front of him. In this case, it was for one caravan, but he was quite clearly aware of the intended occupants and their specific circumstances. Before that, as the inspector references in his report, there had been 2 applications for larger numbers of caravans. So I think it's a bit of both, really. An inspector only determines what's in front of him, but previous inspectors had determined other questions. And whilst they were different, they specifically included larger numbers of caravans. And on larger numbers of caravans, the previous 2 inspectors did not grant consent.
There's only one caravan, but 2 sales decisions.
Mr. Brown, do you want to?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'll just come back on what Councillor Simpson said. That's correct. The inspector has to, just as you would do with doing a planning application, you deal with just the application in front of you, which at that time was for a single pitch with the two vans. And what the inspector does not do and cannot do and should not do is to speculate as to what might happen to that family. And that's the key difference between myself and Councillor Simpson. Just as you can't speculate about what happens to a planning application in the future or what an applicant may mean, the inspectorate can't do that either. He deals with just the proposal in front of him, not speculating on, therefore, trying to prejudge or preempt what might happen on the site a year or 2 or even 4 years down the site, down the line. So that's the key difference between myself and Councillor Simpson on that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And like yourself, Councillor, I wasn't on the board at the time, mate, but my understanding is that 3 caravans were applied for, refused, an inspectorate went through it, refused. 2 were applied for, refused, inspector went through it, refused. It was only with 1 caravan application, of which the inspector, I think Councillor Simpson, you're saying, knew about the family situation, and it was allowed, but with 1 caravan. That's the really.
Can I just clarify, was that on this site or the previous site that they were considering? Or they put an application in? for?
I think, my understanding,
No, please.
my understanding, Chairman, is it was the same site, but a different location within the site.
So it's the same site,
Alright.
it was at the front of the site rather than the rear of the site.
With 1 caravan.
Okay, so any other comments? Any other questions? So we have 1 recommendation for refusal, which has been seconded. Do we have any other recommendations? See anything? So it's a straight vote. So we have a recommendation for refusal. I see all those in favour of refusal. All those against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's how the application is refused. And I believe at that point, handing back the chair.
I think this is big.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. We now move to application number 379 for Colin Park, Litchfield Road, Tulsa. Mr. Brown, anything to add to your?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chairman. I would say that in this particular case, there's no firm commitment in place, and therefore I would recommend that this conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Members, any additional comments? Just perhaps one from me, Mr. Brown. I think in the past when we got to Colin Park, we were talking to the applicant for that application about having a tree management plan. I'm not aware there is one.
I've not seen one, Mr. Chairman, but whether or not Councillor Bell, as chairman of the Community and Environment Board, can take that up with the relevant officers, that's the way to proceed with that one.
Okay.
I think perhaps if we put an advisory note on the bottom, well, certainly I propose to put an advisory note on the bottom, suggesting that the applicant. Members, any questions or proposals? Councillor Fowler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As this is my board, and I very much welcome a management plan. I hope will include, as you'll be maybe aware, Chairman, that Poland Park is as a whole but split into 2. The Borough Council will look after Poland Park, the wildlife trust, in conjunction with the Borough Council, look after the left-hand side. And I hope we'll include Chasseau and Wirral, which is on the other side of the road, which is still part of the Borough Council's land. So I hope that will be included in any any management plan of trees. That will also, of course, bring in the Warwickshire Wildlife Tree company in, because they are doing an awful lot of work on that area. So I think they will very much welcome a management plan as well. So thank you.
Councillor Hayfield?
I'm happy to move the recommendation with the suggestion that you made about the advisory note on management.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any other comments, members? In which case it's been proposed and seconded that consent is granted. Going to see those in favour. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. The next application is number 92 for Spring Cottage Farm, Watling Street, Glendon. Anything to add to your?
No, Mr. Chairman, just to reiterate, this is an report for information only, to let members know about this application, which is in for 200 houses on the left-hand side of the Watling Street as you go up towards Grandon. The Grendon roundabout is just on the corner of the plan there, where the co-op is. You can see that there. It's just basically better note that you can see that on the right-hand side down here, you can see the fishing pond. That's Ridding's fisheries in Spring Farm. It's there, so you can see in the middle. The application, the report, Mr. Chairman, just runs through the documents which have been received by the council, and therefore the text in there is very much that of the applicants. And we will come back to you with the determination report in due course. Whilst the site is there, the applicant has provided a parameters plan, which is part of the application, which is outlined there and is already in part of in the papers that you have in front of you, Mr. Chairman. And the recommendation is to note it and to visit.
Thank you. Members, any? Councillor Giles?
Thank you, Chair. As we're all aware, there was some £20 million put by to improve the A5. Here we are putting more traffic onto something, and that A5 improvement programme has been shelved. Should we be looking to the powers that be to reinstate that? Because as all of us in the chamber are aware, that's been ongoing for some years, and a considerable amount of money was spent on getting the route for the revised A5, if we call it that. And here we are putting more traffic onto a road that we're saying several years ago wasn't capable of taking what we were doing. And here we are looking at another 200.
And I'm sure, Mr. Brown, that will feature in the officer's recommendation when the item is due for determination.
Clearly, Mr. Chairman, we haven't. Obviously, National Highways will be consulted and together with Warwickshire County Council, and we'll have to wait and see what they have to say. On the second point, then senior officers here are, and I think leading members, together with the MPs, of trying to lobby the government again in respect to the A5. But there is work going on behind the scenes, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Giles?
Can I move the recommendation, Chair?
Thank you. Secondly.
Thank you. Members, can I see all those in favour of the recommendation? I think that's unanimous. We now move to application number 230 for land to the rear of Mark Kingsbury. Carol Davis has indicated she'd like to speak, so if you would take the speaker's chair while Mr. Brown introduces his report.
And again, Mr. Chairman, this is an introductory report, a full determination report which will be brought to you in due course, together with the consultation responses, again, highways, when we receive them. The application site is north of Kingsbury, as you can see there, north of Kingsbury leading up to the M42. The former garden centre is this area here. Members have the bearing for the bearings, and the River Thames is down here. Kingsbury School is down in the bottom right-hand corner. And then again, there is a parameters plan which the applicant has asked to be considered as part of the application, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome to the panel and to the council. My colleague will now explain the rules on public speaking.
Good evening. You've got 3 minutes in total to speak. At a 2-minute marker, I'll remind you you've got 1 minute outstanding. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Thank you. Chairman, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, the local plan. This development goes against the vision. I should have done that, sorry.
That's okay.
This development goes against the vision of the local plan. The National Planning Policy Framework determines what gets built where. And to quote Rachel Taylor MP, who is very sympathetic to the needs of the North Warwickshire Borough Council, quote, "We must build the right homes in the right places," unquote. This site location is not the right place, mainly because Kingsbury is situated alongside the largest oil depot in the UK, which makes Kingsbury a different village to any other village in the UK.
This difference is a significant factor when deciding how many houses should be built alongside the oil depot. Highway issues. The new occupants of the 283 houses could have 400 plus cars, vans using the A51, which is an evacuation road. This lessens the amount of safety existing at present for Kingsbury residents. The aspirational aim of the applicant for them is to car share, which is not practical. Acoustics, double treble glazing, have no effect when windows are open upstairs at night and during summer days, or when you're eating in one's garden. The noise levels would prove to be a nuisance from the M42, mostly at night. The capacity for housing at Kingsbury Village is already full. Design, appearance and layout, Gladmans are proposing a sustainable drainage system consisting of attenuation basins to make weak the waste. Then where does it go? Residential amenity, main amenities resources are already to capacity, schools and doctors. Environment, it would impact greatly on the purpose of the land, which at present acts as a barrier between the M42 and Kingsbury. It absorbs carbon dioxide and releases through photosynthesis pure oxygen into the air, benefiting the Kingsbury community. It is greenbelt land, and because of its value and usefulness should not be altered to grey belt land. The input would definitely destroy all the wildlife presently living there, and also with global warming affecting the weather, this site could become flooded. The character of Kingsbury Village will change.
Sorry, only 3 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
Not at all, thank you.
Right.
Members, do you have any questions to ask me? Councillor Kent?
Just one quick question. You mentioned the impact on the A51. I think you were talking about the capacity of the A51, but in my knowledge, that's a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. Do you feel that speed limit is also inappropriate for an access to a new housing estate at that point?
The A51 is an evacuation road for Kingsbury. I know it sounds improbable, but if the oil depot was attacked from the air and it became necessary for Kingsbury to evacuate, that road is very important. It's the main way for us to go out. The A4097 is for all the emergency services to come in and out with the ambulances and everything. And Piccadilly can only evacuate up Trinity Road. So it's our main road. Kingsbury it's got over 1,800 houses at the moment, probably more than that. There has been houses added into Kingsbury throughout the latter years, but nothing like the size of this development, which would take away the identity of our village from its pastoral village identity. Will become what we go through it. It would become it would become an urban sprawl, because
The point I think the point I was making was, do you think that we need to take into account not just the use of the road, but the speed of that road as well?
Well, yes, they intend putting a ghost island on it. I think the fact that they might have 400 odd cars all of a sudden going on to the A51 is quite a lot of traffic that could be quite an obstacle if we had got to evacuate. And the speed is 50, as you say, and it goes right down to 30 as the vehicles enter the village proper. It goes down from 50 to 30, doesn't it?
Yep.
And really, if they're part of the village, it should be 30 up there as well.
That was what I was trying to get from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? Just one very brief comment from me. The application has been submitted, and this is an initial report for members to be aware of it. We're not reaching a decision on that application tonight. So there will be a further, at least one further meeting when we'll be considering how we respond and if we grant consent or we don't. You are very welcome to come back to the board when we have that further meeting, and equally very welcome to speak again if you would like to. But we won't determine yes or no tonight, but we will clearly remember what you said. If you want to come to us again, you're very welcome to do so.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Members, any comments or questions? Councillor Jones?
Yeah, just to make the point that as the speakers sort of made clear, there's a lot of concern about this application in Kings Creek and the obvious impact it would have on the services in the region. For that reason, I support the recommendation that we make a site visit tonight. I move that recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Hayford?
I'll second that it be noted and things. I think the report here outlines a whole areas that need to be looked at and satisfied. Our speaker has spoken quite eloquently about potential impact that she says bolting 283 dwellings onto the side of an existing community might have. And it isn't just because there's a field there and you could put 283 dwellings on it, doesn't mean that you should. And it doesn't mean that the effect on the community might prove to be disproportionate. So that's all got to be sorted out. But as with a lot of these big applications, I worry that we don't spend enough time worrying about or thinking about the impact that it will have on the people who currently live in that community.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to? Councillor Parsons?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm aware that this approach is an absolutely legal approach, but we are seeing quite a number of these applications. It's a variation. It's not what we've seen previously, where we're being asked to look at these things prior to a site visit. It seems to me that this is an attempt to move things on a bit. I appreciate it's perfectly legal, but it's there, and I'm not entirely happy about it. I don't know that I should be entirely happy about it, but I'm not. I would also like to congratulate the speaker. I think she's given us some really useful insights there, and it was very thoughtfully put, and that's there. But yeah, I did want to just, obviously I support the recommendation, but I think there's something going on here, which is pushing us along, perhaps making some consideration more difficult. Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree with everything that's been said, and I thank the speaker. One thing was touched on was local amenities and sort of, let's say that every house has roughly 2 people in it, or maybe a child or 2, so that's about 600 people. But put in an area with a doctor's surgery that is severely over pushed as it is. And that doesn't only affect Kingsbury, that affects all the surrounding area too, all the villages in the area that have services. And it's worrying that we would be pushing, potentially, if this is a new tactic, we would be pushing forward on these things without taking any account of the wider picture of the area. And Kingsbury relatively lucky, it's got a bus service that pushes through, but doesn't mean then you can get a GP further up chain anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else, members?
Yeah, I was just going to clarify, it's we're determining this as Greybuck because I believe this is on the same site as the redundant garden centre as it was right by the next to the M42 there. And that's why it's now considered grey belt because it's pre-developed.
Brown?
That's not the definition of grey belt land, Mr. Chairman. And clearly the applicant is, and in paragraph 7.2, the applicant is saying it's grey belt. And in that paragraph, we will say that it's a critical issue that officers will address in the future report to the board. I'm not going to comment one way or the other at the moment as to whether this is grey belt or not grey belt.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I misunderstood that. I thought that was from that. Thank you.
So members, the recommendation has been proposed and seconded. Are there any other recommendations? In which can I see all those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. We now go to application number 81 for stables at land south of Faber Farm, Walton Main, Wall Street. Elaine Horton has indicated she'd like to speak, so if you will take the speaker's chair while Mr. Brown introduces his report.
I won't add to the report, Mr. Chairman, because much of it repeats what we had in terms of arguments and factual matters in respect of the previous application we dealt with. Just to run through the site, that's the existing site, and then the proposed with the additional vans, as you can see there, an aerial photograph which was taken some time ago, with again just to make sure that in view of the discussion that we had on the last application. This is a retrospective application for the description as outlined in the header, and that's actually indicated in the header in front of you there, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to go through the application again, Mr. Chairman. The reasons are there why we think why we think planning commission should be granted.
Thank you very much. Thornton, welcome to the council house. My colleague will now explain the rules of engagement on public speaking.
Good evening. You've got 3 minutes to speak. At the 2-minute marker, I'll remind you you've got 1 minute left standing. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Okay. I'm here on behalf of Austria Parish Council. We acknowledge there is a recommendation for granting planning permission in the above application on the conditions attached. Austria Parish Council still has concerns about the following, which are not covered by the conditions. Number 1, control of animals. We would request that a further condition be included that requires adequate maintenance of boundary fencing to prevent animals escaping from the site, as this presents a hazard to road users and also to the animals themselves. The second is road splays. We welcome the condition regarding widening of the road splays, but we request a further condition be included that requires adequate vertical trimming back of the hedges where they meet the roadway to prevent their incursion into the roadway. When the hedges are not trimmed, drivers are forced to cross into the oncoming lane on a blind bend with the obvious hazard that presents. The third point I was going to make was about breaches of conditions, but I think I've already understood, forgive me because I'm new to this, that those notices can be served if conditions are not met. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Remember, if you have any questions for our speaker. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Members, we'd like to start the discussion. Councillor,
If I could, Chair, I'm disappointed again. It's another retrospective, and we're back to the same before. It was granted for 2, and it's going to grow because of family. And there are other younger children there. I'm concerned that they can they grow ad infinitum to a certain extent. And the point that Mr. Berry made, we may have to have a process in place that can actually do that at some time in the future. But as far as I'm concerned, I cannot support this. The village are against it as a whole, and I'm not going to be able to support it. I'm proposing that we go against the recommendation of the officers, and the proposal represents a disproportionate additions to the buildings on the site, and thus there is a spatial and visual harm to the landscape contrary to LP1, LP14, LP13 of the adopted North Warwickshire local plan of 2021, as supplemented by the recent changes to the MPPF. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Panel.
Thank you, Chair. As alluded to by other members and what was myself with previous ones, that I noted in 2.2 the very bottom, it says the appeal letter is an appendix A, and again, it's another one that is missing. So it would be helpful to have that, or as other councillors said, to make a decision. Perhaps it would be advised and help us why we haven't got the appeal letter before us. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Apologies, Mr. Chairman, I'm seeing this off. Human mistake.
Perhaps it would be that the authority a little longer. Councillor Hayfield?
I'll second councillor Humphrey's proposal. I just got a query. This is the second retrospective application we've got for these. Did these people wake up one morning and think, gosh, we ought to get a retrospective application for what we've been doing here for the last year or two? Or does someone kind of tip them the wink and said, you really need to get a retrospective application? How does the process work that we suddenly get retrospective applications for something that's clearly been in situation for quite a while?
Planning officers, do you have any?
There's two responses to that. Firstly, if there's an alleged breach of planning control and that is investigated by an enforcement team, then the enforcement team can suggest that a retrospective application comes in, so it can come from officers. It can also come from the applicants themselves. They choose to put a retrospective application in after the development has taken place. So there are various options available. There's not one particular one, Councillor Hayfield.
So we can't say they've been lent on by the enforcement teams. And I understand the situation now. I still say.
Would the enforcement officer like to make any comments or not? Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Weir.
Thanks. I'd be interested in the planning officer's response to the speaker from the parish council in terms of your thoughts on the conditions suggested. I certainly share the concerns about the dogs onto the road and the other animals, because it says, I can't remember the exact terminology used, but it suggests that it's occasional. I mean, we're talking about several times a day, depending. I'm not sure they have dogs at the moment, but certainly in the past, very recent past, it has been several times a day. And actually, one dog died recently, when it was hit by a car. And, you know, having lived and travelled all across the world, I get that people have different views about animal husbandry, perhaps to myself, but it is a risk to people's lives when those animals are on the road. So we'd be interested in a response to those conditions.
I don't think I can send the enforcement officer, Mr. Chairman, chasing dogs. I don't think that's a planning request. On the other hand, there's no reason why a condition couldn't go on to be about maintenance of fences and hedgerows, and that would apply to the visibility displays as well as to proper maintenance. Proper maintenance of fences and hedgerows can be conditioned, but I don't think the enforcement team would want to go and chase dogs.
No, but I want them to stay tidy.
Councillor Jarvis?
Just thought on that obviously the gates will be open, which will allow any animals to escape. Could there be a condition where it's double gated? So there's always one of the gates closed that stops animals getting out when people are taking vehicles out.
I think that would be unusual, but Mr. Brown?
It's unusual, Mr. Chairman. I'll go further to say it's probably unreasonable and unenforceable. Effectively, the enforcement officers would have to be out there all the time, looking at whether the gate is closed or not. And I don't think that's a reasonable request from enforcement officers. It wouldn't happen on another site, and whether there's whether site, whether it's vehicles or animals, and I think it'd be quite difficult to actually agree to that condition with the tests that are available under planning guidance.
Well, I think there are a requirement for us to agree conditions with the applicant in advance. Anything else, Councillor Jarvis, or were you content?
I'm reasonably content to say that if there is an actual problem, there needs to be sort of a resolution to that problem. And it's like when you go into some shops, don't you? You go into, you open one door, close it before you open the other one, which, you know, in this instance may stop animals or whatever getting out, or even kids. You know, just improves safety.
Thank you. Councillor Humphrey.
Chair, I'm in defence of the applicant, actually. The gate is closed more than it's ever open. I know that, but animals get out through, you know, they get under picked netting and through hedges, etc. But in terms of going into the living area, you know, and there are young children there, and I have been on the site myself, and obviously the people are aware. The children can't wander necessarily into the street, but animals can find all sorts of different ways to get in. And for their own privacy, I know the gates generally are closed.
Thank you. Any other comments, members? I've had a proposal that consent is refused, which was seconded. Are there any other recommendations? In which case, we'll take a vote on refusal. Can I see all those in favour of refusing consent? Thank you. And those against? And those who wish to abstain? Thank you very much. Consent is refused. Members, we now move to application for 327 for the Park of England, Merton Road, Longley. Mr. Brown, anything to add to your report?
No, Mr. Chairman. It's unusual for us to bring a suite of applications to you, but as you can see, in this particular case, it is necessary. The report goes into some detail as to the nature of those applications. And I don't want to spend time doing that, but what I will do is draw attention to the primary application, which is effectively for the zoning of the site. And this is to set a framework for applications that may or may not come in within those on the site, and therefore we can look at a particular zone to see what may have been permitted in that zone and what conditions may apply in that zone, so that we can then look at the application that's before you. So the application for the zoning is as shown on the screen there. The 8 zones. So members are aware that this is the M6 and the Merton Road coming down here with the main access through here, and the village of Cawley is over here on the right hand side. The main bulk of the buildings, as you can see, are here, which is where the current indoor events and weddings are held. The building down here is an agricultural building. You see the lake, and you can see here, this is the area where he is proposing for his off-site vehicles. The area for the clamping pods and what have you is in this area up here. There's an awful lot of work to do on these applications, Mr. Chairman, as you can probably see. This is the key one. If this is going to be granted, we need to ensure that we're satisfied with those zones, and we can satisfy what's being proposed on each of those zones, and that's outlined in the reports you have in front of you. The applicant has also therefore submitted a series of applications relating to those zones, and you can see those on page 109, 108, where in fact he's actually indicated which zones the proposals relate to. The majority of them relate to 1 and 2, which is the redevelopment of the complete building complex up here. Members that have been on the site were aware of these are basically converted buildings. There's a marquee there as well, and there's no overall design or approach for uniformity amongst the buildings. And the proposals are to redevelop the whole of that site and to enable that to happen. It will also enable, as far as the applicant is concerned, is that by providing a new building, a modern building on the site, he can address a lot of the noise issues that have arisen as a result of his use of the buildings outside and also of the marquee. I'll leave it there, Mr. Chairman, because there's a lot there for members to run through and understand. The recommendation is clearly for a site visit so we can better understand how all these applications fit together.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Councillor Hayfield.
Yeah, I'm happy to move that we go to the report and its contents. I actually quite welcome this. We used to have such fun years ago with applications for this sort of huge bunch of beaches. Is the beach still there? No, we had big applications about this, 14 tons of sand on this beach and everything. No, we had great fun with the applications here. They won some, we won some. Let's see what happens with this one.
Councillor Powell. Councillor Parsons.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is a very complex application. It covers a lot of ground and a lot of things. And I mean, I see that the recommendation is that we take the whole thing as a whole, essentially. And I think we need to do that. And so, you know, the site visit seems to me to be absolutely essential. And I'd like to second Councillor Hayfield's proposal.
Thanks very much. Just a question from me, Mr. Brown. When does the consultation period for members of the public to respond finish? I ask you simply because I've been given a couple of letters to give to you.
Yeah. The applications that we've received is the answer to the question, Mr. Chairman, is that it differs depending on each application. The reason for that is because the applications didn't come in together; they came in one at a time, and therefore each have got an end date, if you like, in terms of the expiry of the consultation period. I'm aware that there are a lot of difficulties and consultations to take place with this application, and I suspect there'll be a whole series of amendments. So therefore, determination is not going to be very quick. Therefore, I'm quite happy for residents to continue to submit representations to the case officer as and when. As you normally know, we can take representations right up to sort of 24 hours before a determination report. So therefore, the sooner the better, but there's no problem if they come in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
I'll send it to you quickly then. Members, any other comments or questions? It's been proposed and seconded that the report be noted and that we have a site visit. And I see all those in favour. And that's unanimous. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, Mr. Brown, is an appeal.
Yes, I can update this, Mr. Chairman. As you can see here, this is rather than actually an appeal decision, it's notification of the appeal for the site that we looked at last board meeting with a informative report, just explaining what the proposal was. The applicant has decided to appeal against non-determination, which he's quite entitled to do. That's largely because he wants to get in a queue of appeals with the inspectorate. I think that's going. Councillor Parsons was referring earlier, Mr. Chairman, to residential applications that we have. That the whole of us as officers suspect that we will get applications for non-determination in order just to get into the queue with the inspectorate, because we have to wait for inspectors to become available and then for dates to be available. So I suspect that's what's happened in this particular case. The applicant, as you can see, has asked for an inquiry, a full planning inquiry. We had notification last week that the inspectorate has confirmed that it will be a public inquiry. We haven't determined how long that would be, but it basically will be 6-7 days. I don't expect it to be as long as the Forlongley Solar Farm inquiry, but there will be obviously witnesses for both sides. That has an implication for the parish council as to whether or not they apply to be a Rule 6 party in those proceedings. They may wish to think about that at the present time, but until we actually get a start date from the inspectorate, I can't give you any timetable relating to that. As far as the Borough Council is concerned, then, Mr. Chairman, clearly we have not determined this application. Which means that now it's been lodged and an appeal's been lodged, we cannot determine this application. The determination will be done by the planning inspectorate, not us. When the inquiry comes round, the inspector will want to know what our position is as a council. And therefore we will have to bring a report to you, Mr. Chairman, and we're looking possibly for October board meeting. And the recommendation there will be either minded to approve or minded to refuse. Obviously the board will take its decision, and that will to prepare the inspectorate for our position, and we will prepare our appeal. If it is minded to refuse, we'll base our appeal on that. If it's minded to approve, then that will obviously go off to the appellant and to the inspectorate, and we'll have to sort out what we're going to do with the appeal. But the appeal will not automatically be withdrawn if we are minded to approve. The inspectorate may still wish to hear evidence, and if he or she does, that may be then through a public hearing rather than inquiry. So there are lots of ifs and buts, but the key thing at the moment is for the board to make a decision to outline its position at a forthcoming appeal.
Thank you. Councillor Parsons and Councillor.
I've got a couple of questions for Mr. Brown in a moment, but I would like to say at the moment I find this incredibly regrettable. You know, this is putting parish councils in a very difficult position. If we become a Rule 6 party, we know from experience that is going to involve us in a vast amount of cost, and we cannot keep doing this. You know, I speak as a parish councillor here, and it is exhausting our resources, which were never designed to meet this instance. I honestly feel this is something of a device here, and that yeah, I appreciate, you know, getting in the queue and all the rest of it, but actually it's right. We know there are changes coming to planning, but this is simply circumventing the planning board effectively, and I think quite cynically, to be honest. So I regard it as very, very regrettable. That's, you know, me on my soapbox, but there we go. Questions for Mr. Brown. I mean, obviously this has happened. What is the time limit on these things, and can we be wary of it? Because we've obviously got more of these coming down the line, that we don't get to the point where we're not, you know, being hammered for non-determination, as it were. This is unfortunate, we can't avoid it, but perhaps we can avoid it in the future. So where is the time limit and what can we do about it? The other point I'd like to ask is that we have got a site visit set up for this. Is the site visit now still likely to go ahead, or is that knocked on the head, basically? Thank you, Chair.
Can I answer the first one? Second one first, yeah. Please, Mr. Chairman. Yes, as I said, if we're going to be reporting to you in October, you will want to do that site visit before October. In other words, I agree with you. I don't think the board can come to a position unless it's visited the site. So that will take place before the October board, and I think with the chairman's agreement, we've been looking at a date's been circulated, something like the 27th of September, on just Saturday morning, and to go to the site. But I can clarify that with a note round to all members. But yes, the site visit will take place. In terms of time periods, then yes, all the applications that we've got in and out could be liable to appeals against non-determination. They're all major applications, so the statutory time period of those is 16 weeks. It's in which to determine an application, which is very difficult when consultation responses come in late, and you have to go back to seek amendments or clarification, and therefore this is the reason why many applications do not come to you within the 16 weeks. On the other issue of time periods, then yes, they've lodged this appeal to get, I suspect, and I agree with you, to get into a queue. If others come in, then that queue will, from our point of view, they will accumulate. But the inspectorate will not worry that we have appeal after appeal after appeal. We will have to make the case that we can't resource them, but Nuneaton had 3 major appeals within a month, and they had to deal with them according to the inspectorate's timetable. And that completely took out several case officers and officers for a complete month or 6 weeks just for the inquiry, let alone the preparation period. It's the preparation period that's the key here, because a lot of work has to go into that. So this will be very, very resource hungry, just this appeal alone. And if we get one or two more, that pressure will still apply next year.
If I may come back on that, Chairman. Yeah, thank you for that, Mr. Wren, and I certainly wasn't trying to be critical of our planning officers there in any sense at all. I think you're being, it's a stable of Hercules job, you can't do it. And, you know, and where we go, I don't know. Our resources are being exhausted, our parish council resources are being exhausted, our planning resources are being exhausted, and I know a number of us are going to have to talk to residents on Saturday at a councillor's surgery. I don't know what we're going to say, to be honest, other than that we're in a mess. And yeah, it's a sad state that we've come to. I have to say that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think it was Councillor Humphreys first, then Councillor Watson, then I think I saw Councillor Reary.
Thank you, Chair. One of the reasons that we haven't determined, because we're waiting for outside agencies to give some supply information for us to be able to make a determination. If we get the October board is about during the first week, 4 weeks, 5 weeks away at the most. If we haven't had that information by then, how do we actually determine whether we're for or against? If we're still waiting for highways, for example, how the site's going to egress, either through an estate or onto one of two different roads. And I just wondered how that will work in the future if they still haven't given us any information. Thank you.
I think it perhaps comes down to how material each consultation response is. But it's always possible to reach a recommendation subject to no adverse comments. But you know, if it is a material item of information that's weighted, I suggest keep waiting for it. Mr. Brown?
Generally, Mr. Chairman, I think all the consultation responses are back, which is why we're suggesting October.
Okay.
We normally, with the consultation response, you'll get a flavour from the response letter as to whether it's an objection in principle or whether it can be overcome by amended plans and conditions. That's what we will be looking at. If it's an objection in principle, then obviously you've potentially got a reason for refusal. But we'll do the best we can, Mr. Chairman, when we bring it back to you in October, as to provide a full report as possible.
Councillor Watson?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor White. It just seems like a ludicrous situation that we're in, where we have consultees who are not responding. So can we not say, right, your response date is this. If you have not responded by that date, then do you know what? You've lost the opportunity. And I know that's very difficult to say because of material considerations, etc. But it just seems daft that we're in this position whereby we are not able to determine something because somebody else hasn't responded, and then we are getting hit with appeals and costs and pressure and things like that. It just seems that there's something wrong in the system, and can we not do something that where we say, right, we're going to answer the question, and you have 2 weeks to reply, or 4 weeks, or however long that is.
Two responses to that, Mr. Chairman. First of all, there are resourcing problems with the consultees. And there always have been, just as there may be resourcing issues for us use here, particularly with the county council, have resourcing issues down there. If you go to outside consultants, they deal with a lot of applications like this, so therefore you get in a queue with an outside consultant as well. So therefore it's not easy for outside consultations and statutory responses to come back on time. Particularly if the application is missing information or is not clear, then the statutory response is normally, can we have some more information, please? So it's the standard of the application is submitted often determines how long it takes for a statutory consultation to come back. And then finally, to give you some succour on this, the government, as part of the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, will shortly be doing a consultation on statutory responses. This message has got through to government from various quarters, apart from the planning organisations as well. It goes to the local government association and district councils network. But they too have been, the evidence they have is that consultation responses, statutory consultation responses do cause significant delays. And therefore what they are proposing is, just as you say, a cut-off in terms of that, or, and I haven't reported on this, Mr. Chairman, so this is completely new, that the applicant actually pays the consultant, the response, pays a fee to the consultant to get an early response.
Councillor
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd echo all the comments made so far, and I think it is very cynical move. I think I'm not commenting on this particular developer, but quite often developers have a lot more resources than our officers. In section 2.6, it's officers will keep the local community informed of progress. I just wondered what that would look like. And I know that Wharton Residents Group would very much like to be on your list of stakeholders.
Well, the verbal update this evening, you can tell residents definitely there will be a public inquiry. You can tell them that. We don't know a date. My best guess at a date is probably January. It'll probably take 2 weeks, but certainly the parish council need to look at whether they want to be a Rule 6 party, and in other words, taking part in that application. I suggest they have a word with Dordon for Longley parish councils, because they've been enrolled in recent appeals and the cost involved in that. And as I say, Mr. Chairman, we'll hopefully bring a report to you in October, which is the first available time we can update you, and so we can recommend a position that you might wish to take.
I'm craving your indulgence here, Chair, because this is the third time I've spoken on it. Quite all right. Thank you very much. But I have to, draw attention to a few things here. I mean, certainly, Polesworth, Dordon, Parish Council will be broke if we carry on doing 6 interventions and employ legal counsel to do that effectively. We're going to have to think long and hard about this. But to sort of expand on what Councillor Watson said earlier, I attended a lot of the Hodgetts development public inquiry, which went on for a very long time and was quite entertaining at times, and came out in our favour, but at great cost. And one of the problems that led to the lack of determination was the fact that County Highways had not actually come back to the planning authority with their recommendations. I was absolutely aghast at second or third day of the inquiry, where the County Highways barrister spoke for the first time and withdrew all their applications after we were left there, partly because of their lack of response. Cost us a colossal amount of money, and they just washed their hands of it, Pontius Pilate style, and said, "Oh well, yeah, carry on, no objections." Thank you.
Councillor Hayfield and Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Has anyone moved this report be noted yet? If not, I will. Just to pick up on Councillor Parsons' bit about impact on parish councils when this happens in your area, but it can be ruinously expensive. I mean, you feel obliged to throw everything you've got and everything you've not got into it, so that you have your own council. And my limited experience of these public inquiries is that the inspector, if you just turn up as the parish council and say you want to contribute to as a parish council, and you get your chance to put your spirit, that they listen with great patience and take note of what you say. And I do wonder sometimes whether it really is worth all the money you throw at it to get council to turn up and speak on your behalf. Much better local residents, like we heard some tonight and things, who speak from the heart about their village and their community and the impact these applications have. But others will make comment on that. But I think the temptation is, over Whittaker and that doorbell inquiry cost an absolute fortune. And I think whether they influenced the outcome or not, I don't think they necessarily did. But they kind of felt good about the fact that they'd contributed to it, but it was ruinously expensive.
I think it's fair to say, though, Councillor Hayfield, the Rule 6 party has a substantially greater input to proceedings. You turn up as a member of the public or an interested party, you speak on the first day. If you're a Rule 6 party, you are there throughout the whole. And I'd like to be consulted on the whole, but anything to add? Councillor Phillips?
Oh, no, I'd say, I think to help highways move along, maybe we should have a whip round and get them a few more stamps that just say yes. Because they must only have one, keep losing it in the office, because that's all they seem to do. Yeah, I'll send them something flippant. Sure.
Councillor?
Yeah, with my chair of the parish hat on, I just have to say really that we were advised, we spoke at length with the people from over Whittaker actually before we decided to create the Rule 6 party. And we were very fortunate that there were 2 parish councils that joined forces to help with the mitigation of the costs. However, for this one, it would be 1 parish council. So, you know, I'm very mindful here that whereas we had a split cost going on before with our neighbours, we haven't got the same affordability here for this one, which is a concern. But I would say the Rule 6 parties, from the advice we were given from the legal side, very much has a big impact actually. So, you know, that is worth, although the costs are there, and as you rightfully say, you have more say, but comes with that, you also have to have more experts on your side as well, which come with that attached. So it is a difficult one, but I think from what Councillor Parson said, you know, we were very successful with ours, and I think the Rule 6 party was very critical in that decision. So it's one of them, isn't it? But as you say, Councillor Parsons, we can't keep doing this as parish councils. We don't have enough precepts. You know, that needs looking at if it's going to become a thing that's happening all the time. So I think that would need to be reviewed. But anyway, thank you.
I would just say that, don't forget, borough council is spending significantly more than the city council, where is any more strain on the public purse. But there you go, that's.
I'll second the recommendation.
To be fair, my recollection is that it was actually proposed by Councillor Fowler. So we're all, I think, I'll take it that we're all. Not 33. So, given that it's been proposed, seconded and everything else. Can I see all those in favour? Thank you very much.
No, Chair, we didn't take into account the poor King's councils on £10,000 a day. It's not getting them to keep them working until then. Absolutely.
I think I remember remarking, I think they're certainly earning their pennies, and I revised it to sorry, they're earning their gold bar.
Subcharger in guineas.
Members, you may not be aware of it, but tonight you have been watching history. You've been taking part in a historical event. 1974, as it then was, North Warwickshire District Council came to being. We were not at that point a borough, didn't have a mayor, we were a district council. One of the employees of that organisation was a very fresh-faced, youthful Mr. Brass.
Still is.
He had not at that point learned the relative weight. But I'm sure at that early stage, he was already reminding members to take every case on its merits and only consider the application in front of you, and all these other well-known catchphrases. I suspect, given Mr. Brown's impending partial retirement, because it can only ever be partial, this may be his last formal planning board. So on your behalf, members, I would like to say a very, very heartfelt thank you to Mr. Brennan for all of his sage advice, his forbearance, of putting up with me, let alone you. Mr. Brown, you know, whatever you decide to do, and look, I hope personally it's not the last time we see you. But thank you. Thank you very much indeed for what you've done for North Warwickshire, for us as members, for the authority, for all those countless applicants. And I'm sure as you drive around North Warwickshire it'd be very difficult to find a development, a house, a tree that you've not been engaged with at some point in the last, would you believe, 51 and a bit years. You have been an absolute stalwart, and we appreciate it. We may not always agree with you, but frankly, there isn't anybody in this room I always agree with, so you shouldn't be any different to that. But honestly, how you have put up with us for all that time, goodness only knows. But thank you for doing so. Well, he's a jolly good fellow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can't say it's been a pleasure. I can't really remember what happened 50 years ago or even 40 years ago in terms of the planning board. I will say that I've had to put up with other chairmen rather than yourself. Members will be aware that I think we've had 4 or 5 chairmen since I've been around reporting to you. Councillor Birkinshaw, Councillor Lee.
That was my mistake. Sorry, don't mean to say it like that.
No, there's several chairmen.
Councillor Powell.
Councillor Powell, Councillor Lee, and Councillor Riley has been around as well, and one or two others as well. So I've seen a lot of chairmen. Each has had a different approach, and I think as we've gone through, we've developed that approach. And to come back onto the final point there you made, this authority is very much a matter of trust and respect between officers and members. There are a lot of authorities, not too many miles from here, you will find that trust doesn't exist, which is why councils get into a lot of issues and things aren't being done. But one of the things that we do here, I said, is respect and trust, and we know that that applies to all members across the chamber. And that we can talk about things informally as well as formally, and we may differ on recommendations or outcomes, as has been clear tonight. Because as an officer, I must take that on the nose. That's my job. It's your decision, not mine. And we can do quite a lot of working with you to try and get a decision that would stand up. And in an appeal situation, that may not happen all the time. And officers will not take umbrage about that. That's part of our role, that's part of our JD, that you make the decisions. But I think what we do here is we make that decision-making process far easier and far fairer than a lot of other authorities do. And that's why it's been a pleasure to work here. Not necessarily a pleasure to work with all the members. But that's all I'll say at the moment, Mr. Chairman.
Tie back the tap, tie back the tap.
I think there might be a considered views on the individual members. But please don't be a stranger, Mr. Brown.
No, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, I go at the end of September, and talked about the October board. Clearly, myself and officers will be involved in preparing the reports of that board. There may, apart from the items we talked about tonight, there may be a couple of my own cases. Which will have to be reported because they've been deferred several times, and they're looking likely to be reported to that board. Therefore, whoever takes over from me may well be presenting to you as on that occasion, and I may be asked to participate as a case officer rather than as the lead officer. But we'll have to wait and see. So I suspect you will see me for a couple of occasions the next couple of months.
We'll look forward to it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Members, it now falls to me to move agenda item 7 and the exclusion of the public and press for the remaining items. All those in favour? Thank you much. That's unanimous. Gentlemen, I'm sorry we have to say goodnight to you now, but thank you for bearing with us. And we'll hopefully see you again on another occasion.
Sure you will. I give a render something in the evening.